The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition. It is June 19th, 2014. Tonight, I'm going to be getting into Iraq and ISIS again. Interesting symbolism, by the way. The name of the group is actually because you see a lot of this in comment sections and stuff. People are saying it's ISIL, not ISIS. Well, our media, our government, our set of controllers are calling them ISIS. I know they go by ISIL as well, but interesting name. ISIS. Should look at the cult of ISIS. They're the people that are doing what they're doing. I don't think I have to, well, all right, I have to explain this to you. I think one night I'm going to have to do a whole broadcast just on the cult of ISIS and all of this stuff, going back to the Egyptian mystery schools and even beyond. You know what I should do is I should get some of Bill Cooper's stuff off the shelf. And what you should do as a listener, ladies and gentlemen, is actually, I know, last time I checked it was still up. I think you can still download it. I think it's Hour of the Time. Just look up Hour of the Time archives or Bill Cooper radio archives. I'm sure it'll come up in your favorite search engine of choice. And they used to have it, the Hour of the Time, over on their website. They used to have the ability to download them. And see if you can grab, or they should be on YouTube somewhere, see if you can find the Mystery Babylon series, where he goes over everything. The Egyptian mystery schools, everything. So you can understand the symbolism of ISIS. You can understand, goddess of fertility and magic. Interesting that they call this terrorist group ISIS, at least in the news, putting that name out there, that meme, I guess, as it were. And I could do a whole show about the symbology there, right? But instead of pounding that into your heads, I want you to go look into it yourself. I'm going to try and experiment, see if this works. Often I'll come on air and I'll talk about this stuff and I'll go into, deep stuff. And I will do a further in-depth show on that in the future. I have a bunch of stuff I want to get into tonight. So, but in the future, I will get into it. But between now and then, I'd like you, the listener, to actually take charge and go look into it yourself, okay? Go look into ISIS, if you don't know who she is, or who she was, or who she represents, to the powers that shouldn't be. And remember, when you look into this stuff, ladies and gentlemen, you have to look into it with an open mind. You can't go into it going, well, I don't believe in this stuff, so therefore it's not true. Well, just because you don't believe in it doesn't make it true. And I'm not saying that ISIS is real, or she's really God, or I'm not. It's not even. I'm not even getting into the whole ISIS, Osiris, Horus, anything. I'm not getting into. I'm not even getting into the story and saying whether or not that's true or not. What I'm saying is you have to understand that it's true that these people, the people that you think you're electing, it's more like a selection, but the people that are in power, the powers that shouldn't be, they believe in this stuff. Okay? And there's a large portion of their followers that believe in this stuff. So in order to understand why they do what they do, one must understand their beliefs. Doesn't mean you have to believe in it yourself and dance around and, go out in the woods in the middle of July and worship Minerva, big owl. That's not Molech. It's kind of like Molech was a bull god. If you look at all the things, all the statues of him, he was a bull god, and they used to actually build a furnace in his belly, and then they'd open it up, and they'd put kids in there and burn them alive. They still do mock human sacrifices, but that owl is actually Minerva. If you look, Minerva, her symbol was an owl, and the Bohemian Club and all these secret societies use the symbol of an owl. Okay. It's more than just the fact that owls can see in the dark, although there is that too. Remember, they don't ever use anything or do something just for one reason. So the owl is representative of Minerva, but the owl is all-seeing, because the owl, and Jordan Maxwell has talked about this, the owl can see in the dark. It can see at night, right? So it's illuminated because it's the only thing that can see in total darkness. You get it? The darkness would be ignorance, and the reason why the owl can see is because it has access to information that you, the general public, do not, i.e. the representation of an owl being used in many, many secret societies, okay? Many. You have to spend hours researching this stuff. You can't just go watch a YouTube video, by the way, and go, I'm an expert. No, you're not. You're actually only regurgitating what somebody else told you, which is the equivalent of what we do when we go to public school, or we go to whatever, even if private school, if it's controlled by, Common Core standards or whatever, right? You're still just regurgitating someone else's crap. You have to read. You have to read books. You have to spend time actually understanding. Okay, you can't proclaim to have knowledge and understanding of everything from watching, even if it's a 2-hour long YouTube video. That's not doing research. It's doing a little bit of research, but that's not doing your research. And no, I'm an expert. That's part of the problem with this. When people debate stuff about this, or they debate somebody that doesn't know, or a faux skeptic or whatever, okay, and they debate them on subjects like this, and they start talking about it, the other side might have more knowledge of the subject, and even if what they're spewing is garbage, it doesn't matter, because they have more knowledge of it. They can throw out arguments that are riddled with logical fallacies and lies, and if you don't know enough, you'll get dragged into it, and you'll be made a fool of because you haven't done your research. So just because you hear me talk about it on air for like 5 or 10 minutes while I'm talking about Iraq and stuff, don't just think, oh my God, Popeye said this, I know it. No, you don't. Okay, I know because I've done years of research on this, and it's so hard, and I know my fellow radio show hosts understand this, it's so hard to come on air and to be able to explain this stuff, verbally to you all with the, in a 2-hour show, when you have the knowledge that it takes years to acquire. You can't just cram it into a 2-hour show. Okay, you can cram highlights and stuff that you think might pique people's interests into looking into it further, but you really can't cram it all into a 2-hour show, especially let alone 5 or 10 minutes of me talking about it as I get into, Iraq and the chaos going in there. So just please do your research, look into things. Okay, even if you're a hardcore Christian, oh, I don't believe in this stuff. That's the devil speak, whatever. Even you could be, maybe you're Jewish, maybe you're Muslim, maybe whatever, you're Buddhist, and whatever your religion says, no, that's crazy. I don't believe in that. Okay, you don't have to actually believe in it. Like, you don't have to give their beliefs power and go, oh yes, goddess, please kill children and suck their souls out and blah, whatever the frig they do. You don't have to believe in that. Okay, but you do have to understand that they believe in that. That level of knowledge alone will allow you to be on the same playing field. Because now when you look at them and you go, oh, well, that makes sense. Like, people go, why would they let little kids die? Why would they push vaccines that they know would kill little kids? Well, when they don't have a problem sacrificing little kids to Tiamat or Enki or whoever else that they're Minerva, whatever deity that they're trying to sacrifice and bring forth with the energy of the child's soul being released, okay, whoever they're trying to appease with killing a child, they will kill a child in a sacrificial ceremony. Do you think they care about poisoning your kid? No. Makes it easier to understand that, though, when you understand that they actually do sacrifice people and they kill people. And it's not hyperbole. They actually do it. I've had Fritz Springmeier on. Go listen to the archives. I got to get him on again. Fritz has talked about, he interviewed a police officer that they literally, he interviewed a police officer and this other guy, and the guy was a civilian. He was an investigator or whatever, but they deputized him because he had come across this ceremony going on in the woods, and they were, just as the cops got there, they were about to sacrifice this woman, and they ended up shooting. They shot the head guy with his headdress and everything on because he had the knife in his hand, and as he was about to kill the chick, they shot him, and then Honcho number 2 reached over, picked up the knife, and was going to kill her, and they shot him dead too. I mean, this stuff goes on. Whether you choose to believe it or not, it happens. That's why evil is so prevalent in this world, ladies and gentlemen, because there's so many people that go, well, I simply choose not to believe that. Well, see, that's the problem. Your beliefs are blinding you from seeing reality. I don't like a lot of the things that are going on either, but if we admit that that's actually going on, then we could deal with it. A lot of people get pissed when I say, well, we have, everybody's at fault with the Iraq war. Well, I'm not at fault for it. I was against it. No, you are at fault for it because it represents, our country is represented. Therefore, do you think the Iraqi citizens are going to go, well, John Smith in Poughkeepsie, New York, he didn't really go along with it. In fact, I saw him holding a sign once at a rally that said no war for oil. Do you think they care? Do you think they know that? No. We're being judged en masse. That should be enough for you. The fact that we didn't, maybe this is hardcore to say, but the fact that we didn't physically stop any of this from happening is another problem. We all ranted and raved and screamed and yelled, but because no one actually physically did anything. I mean, some people tried to block ports and stuff like that with their bodies and they got arrested, but I'm talking about our men and women in the armed forces. They didn't stand down and say no. And of course, there's a reason for that. Look, I could get sidetracked with it. The point is, you have to go do your research and understand. To understand, when I do a radio show, when I come on and I tell you guys go back and listen to my archives, there's a reason I tell you to do it. It's not because I want you to listen to my show and I think I'm cool or a rock star and I want to be popular. It's because when I talk about things, I'm talking about, I come on air. It's like having a conversation with you. Well, I look at it as I'm picking up the conversation where we last left off, right? And if you weren't involved in the conversation earlier, I can reiterate a few things, but it doesn't help if I have to constantly reiterate the same points over and over and over and over and over again. And it becomes an echo chamber, and my brain will turn into mush. I don't like repeating myself 1,000 times. That's why my archives are up and available for free for everybody. That way you can go listen to them at your leisure. Then, that's why when I'm talking about something, I'll make mention of the show that I'm referencing to sometimes. And I'll say, go back and listen to this. And if I can remember the date or the title I gave it, I'll tell you. Because it's important for you to do your research. Even Snoring Dog here in the background thinks so, right, Monster? That's right. It's extremely important to do your research, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't understand history to the fullest extent, if you can't have a comprehension of history, maybe that's a better term. Okay, if you can't comprehend history for what it truly is and see it for what it truly is, we will be doomed to repeat it. Okay? We all need to take responsibility for the things that have been done in our name. Once we do that, then we've done the acceptance part of the whole thing. There won't be any arguing over it anymore. You get the point? That's why people still get upset when you talk about the Iraq war and you try to, well, this is bad and we shouldn't be doing this. Well, my cousin died, my brother died, my son died, my sister died, whatever. And there's an emotional blockage there. They can't get past that to get to the acceptance part. Okay? If we could all collectively as a country get to the acceptance part that war was completely illegal and wrong and that we shouldn't have done it, and that no matter how much egg on our face we have, and if you're pissed off that your family member might have died for lies, we have to admit, and this is actually respecting their sacrifice, would be to actually admit the truth of why they lied rather than sit and continue to push, well, my kid died because, he was protecting our freedoms. No, he didn't. Or she didn't. I'd hate to tell you, I have friends that are gone forever, and it's all for lies. Okay, I'm not happy about it in the slightest bit. You think I'm happy about it? You think I like the fact that we got people dead in this country, missing, gone, erased from time? Some of my very close friends I will never speak to again. You think I'm happy about that? You think that makes me smile? No. But I know that if I speak the truth about why they died, the bigger picture, then I'm honoring their memory. Okay? I'm not their sacrifice, their death won't be in vain. It's in vain if I don't tell the truth and I allow the thugs, the powers that shouldn't be, to get on with what they're doing without standing up and saying no. And I know it's hard for people to get past that, but the war in Iraq was immoral and illegal. It does not matter how you cut it. No justification. And what we're seeing today is a direct result of it. You hear Tony Blair, well, if you didn't go in, they still would have had a civil war. I'd hate to break the news to you, but even if they had a civil war, Saddam's forces were very good at what they did, keeping their own people at bay. You could say what you want about him, but they were good at keeping their own people at bay. How can you tell if it would have erupted into a natural civil war, not being fomented in any way, shape, or form by the West? I mean any way, shape, or form. No funding, no money, no advisors, no emails, no text messages. Hey, how you doing? Nothing. Okay. Let's see if a real grassroots, I'm doing air quotes, grassroots effort would rise up. But no, that's their excuse now. Well, if we didn't go in, they would have had a civil war anyway. See, nobody can just say, we shouldn't have gone in. Because if they do, well, then they open themselves up to criticism and perhaps legal charges for being war criminals. So you see, they went so far down the dark side, the wrong path, as it were, that they literally, at least in their eyes, can't go back. Remember, they've been charged. What was it, Malaysia, I think? They were charged, or somewhere around. Yeah, I think it was Malaysia. Wasn't it in a Malaysian court or something like a year or two ago? Blair and Bush and Cheney and all them, a bunch of them were all charged as war criminals, and they were found to be war criminals. I mean, technically it's on the books. Now if they admit it, maybe their legal advisors said, psst, if you say we shouldn't have gone in, you could go to jail or worse. Do you understand what the word war criminal is, Mr. Blair? So they'll never change, ever, their story. It was justified. The Iraq incubator babies, remember? That was 91, sir. Oh, that's right. Well, I got my lies mixed up. I hate when that happens. There is no justification for what we did to that country. And I know a lot of people say, well, this country was ass backwards, man. Well, as I said the other day, I explained how 12 years of sanctions really kicked the crap out of that country. And it was like siege warfare and set it back. And then we bombed it and then bombed it. And then we really bombed the hell out of it and then smashed everything when we invaded. So, I mean, we destroyed pretty much everything. We brought that country to its knees, literally. Put it back into the Stone Age. And then we put some, puppet government in, for lack of a better term. And this is the best part. The other night, what did I say on air about Maliki? Or Al-Maliki, however to freaking pronounce his last name. What did I say about him? I said, you watch, they're going to start calling for him to resign. It's like a playbook they run by, right? I said they're gonna call for him to resign, and they're gonna want to put in a puppet dictator, and then they'll come in and they'll start bombing. That'll be their thing. What did they say today? We'll come in and start bombing, but we have to have, we'll give you some air support, but we have to have a conversation with, the current prime minister of Iraq or president, whatever the hell he is, whatever his official title is. And we have to talk about him resigning and maybe somebody else, stepping up to the plate. Oh, looky. Maybe that's part of the reason they let ISIS, ISIL, whatever you want to call them. Maybe that's why they let their little band of merry terrorists run loose for the past 6 months in Iraq. Remember, they've been in Fallujah since January. That should piss off all the Marines and Army guys that died in the Battle of Fallujah Part 2, 04, Phantom Fury 2. Yeah. Or even the first Battle of Fallujah, but that should really piss you guys off. Huh? Does that make you angry, guys? How many people died in the Battle of Fallujah? 2004. And they just let ISIS go in and take it. Well, we couldn't do it. And Obama on a press conference today. By the way, our president, they can't... Our president, right? No, whatever. Their little press team, him, they can never use the we ended the Iraq war lie ever again. Even though they've used it up to like 2 weeks ago, they were saying it. And I'm sure his idiot followers will still say it. He came on at a press conference today and said, hey, I didn't want to pull the troops out of Iraq. They made us leave. What? So wait, Mr. President, I thought you were running on the fact that I ended the Iraq war. Dun, 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 dun. And he's got a cape off of him, and he's wearing his Superman leotard, and he's standing there with his hands on his hips. I'm Super Barack. Or maybe Super Barry. Or Super Trader. There you go. ST. Super Trader. I ended the Iraq war. I can take credit for it. They wouldn't sign an agreement because you wanted American troops to have immunity from any sort of prosecution, which it's funny because the American citizens were like, of course, Papa. When I talked about it, when I talked against this, people said, you're a vet. I can't believe you'd want your fellow vet brothers to be, held accountable. What, for their actions? Maybe they wouldn't pull the trigger on somebody as fast, huh? Maybe, if that's such a problem, maybe the troops shouldn't be in that country. Because if we had foreign troops here, would you be okay, government, with giving foreign troops amnesty to just drive down the street and shoot American civilians and there'd be no repercussions over it? Switch the script, flip it, as they say. Tell me, would it be okay? Would you give immunity to Chinese soldiers to drive down the street and shoot American citizens? You probably would. But maybe to the average citizen, to those who were like, well, our troops, they need immunity so they can carry out their mission. Okay. How about if Chinese soldiers come here? Should they have immunity from our laws and they can just cap your kid? They see your kid in the road, maybe a Chinese guy laughs and runs your 6-year-old daughter over with a tank and squishes her like a little grape. You're insane with rage because you just watched your kid get crushed by a tank. Out of your mind, homicidally insane. You can't do anything, though. Those troops, they got immunity. And by the way, if you touch them, they can kill you too and the rest of your family. Maybe detain your other kids and your wife as terrorists. Oh, now you don't like it. And I'm not saying that American troops were just evil and ran over kids and tanks and stuff. There were bad things that happened. Not every American soldier, airman, marine, or sailor, or guardsman is like that. Okay, but as I've said in numerous shows before, when you embrace the dark side, like Dick Cheney talked about, we need to embrace the dark side. Go look at interviews about him going into Iraq. Just look up Dick Cheney and says we need to embrace the dark side on YouTube. It'll come up. Pushing for the invasion of Iraq. We need, we're going to have to embrace the dark side. Of course, Darth. Literally. I'm going to talk about Darth Vader in person. Dick Darth Cheney. Guy had no pulse for 2 years Had a pump attached to his hip? Literally. I mean, talk about evil. Your heart don't work and you're still alive. Isn't that the definition of pure evil? Like, wow, his heart actually did not work and Dick really didn't have a heart. Literally. For at least like a year and a half. And the pump is what kept him alive. Wonder how much money that cost us. I'm sure he didn't pay for that. I'm sure tax dollars paid for that. I'm sure his healthcare plan that he gets for the rest of his life covered that on the American tax dollar. Darth Cheney. Anyway, yeah, so the invasion was illegal and completely immoral and wrong. And I need to hammer that point home. We're coming up on a break in about a minute. When we get back, I'm going to get off my soapbox. And I'm going to get into a few details for you. And I want to talk about ISIS a little bit. I just want to talk about the fact that, was it yesterday? Jones had a reporter on, I think it was from the New York Times, and I can't remember his name right now. And he was talking about how the terrorists, ISIS and Al-Qaeda were getting trained, in controlled camps in Jordan. And we were training them, intelligence services, CIA, and the like. And I did a little research, and you can see there's actually articles dating back all the way to, last month and even before, the beginning of May and even before, confirming the same thing, coming out of other sources, even coming out of the Middle East itself, even coming out of Press TV, Iran's news source. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. ISIS being trained in Jordanian camps by our own government. But hey, we need to be afraid of them. New boogeyman, stay tuned. So we're back, ladies and gentlemen. So before we went to break, I was saying ISIS is being trained in Syria and in Jordan. Now we know that there are some camps, in areas where they have control in Syria, and obviously they're being trained there. But this article, and this is again from Press TV, okay? People need to go do their research. They need to actually pay attention when things are posted. There's stuff that dates back to, now again, the article itself dates back to the 3rd of May. And here it is almost the end of June. In an interview with the state-run BBC, an unnamed senior commander from the terrorist-free Syrian army, the FSA, said the U.S. has been secretly training the militants and the Al-Qaeda operatives in neighboring Jordan. Most of the rebels have some education. It was not hard for them to detect the American accent of the trainer. He spoke through a translator, but the way he spoke indicated he was American, he explained. He said the 2-week-long training courses, which take place at a military facility outside the Jordanian capital, focus on small and medium arms, as well as mortars and rocket-propelled grenades. Everything the fresh young militant would need. Up-and-coming basic training for Al-Qaeda. And of course they deny it and say, no, stop it. Right. Jordanian intelligence was connected to 9/11, by the way. It wasn't just... when I've given my synopsis of 9/11, if you go back and listen, I'll go over it again in future broadcasts, but I've talked about how it wasn't the CIA or Mossad. It was a collaboration of the CIA, Mossad, Pakistani ISI, Jordanian intelligence, British intelligence. I mean, there's too many things that happened. Even, I would even say to a certain extent, the German intelligence services, because they were like Muhammad Atta was connected to cells in Germany, and somehow he was able to, they're able to travel through all these countries and not get caught. But they're terrorists, but you can travel freely. You or I go to the airport, you get felt up. You might even be on a no-fly list. These guys are supposedly bad guys, and they can just right through and get passports. No, that's not shady. Go watch Burmes's film Fabled Enemies. He made it, 5-6 years ago. you'll see a guy named Michael Springman. And he was working for the State Department in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And he said that a lot of the hijackers, he was in the office that issued them passports, and he said when the names would, people would names would come up flagged saying, this guy could be a terrorist, possible terrorist, or is a terrorist, they didn't care. They did not care one bit. They would issue them a passport, and that would be it. His higher-ups said, issue him the passport and shut your mouth. And he obviously couldn't say anything until he left government, but then he left. Go watch Burmes's film, Fabled Enemies. If you're going to watch any of his films, watch that one, because that actually has a ton of information that you probably have no idea about 9/11 or the connection to all these different intelligence services. Anyway, so we have confirmed, or confirmation, I should say, from two separate sources. I guess actually three, if you think about the fact that the guy that wrote the article, like I said, he was interviewed on Jones's show. So that's, I guess, three, because now you have him being interviewed on Jones's show. You have, although that is kind of the same source, his article. And then you have this article from Press TV, which I'll even drop this in the chat for everybody, which goes back to the beginning of May. Okay. And it just goes to show you that, yes, they are actually training these guys. So why do I bring this up? Why do I bring this up? Well, I bring this up because people, if you watch the news, okay, and I said this again 2 days ago too. What did I say? I said they're going to try to remove him. They're going to say, yeah, well, blah, blah, blah. First they said no troops. Now they're going to do airstrikes. Advisors are on the ground, right? So as soon as one of those Green Berets or a Marine gets killed, watch what happens. But you trust me. But technically we have boots on the ground in Iraq. Even though they're saying we don't have boots on the ground in Iraq, if you have one American set of feet on the ground and they're in the military and they're actually physically on the ground, then technically you have boots on the ground. So we have boots on the ground in Iraq again. Now, this is a scary situation because, to a certain degree, because you have the neocons who are just screaming. I mean, Marco Rubio and all of these neocons. Again, I've said for months now, these guys are all fake conservatives, faux conservatives, PNAC, Project for a New American Century, neocon run, and they're up there on TV. We need to go into Iraq. We need to bomb the hell out of things. We need to do this. We need to do that. John McCain. How does anybody take this man seriously? In one breath, he's on TV. We should be bombing ISIS. I mean, these guys are terrorists. The president's a jerk. All this, the surge and all the people we lost, they died for nothing. Well, you're right, John. They did die for nothing, but they died for lies. They didn't die for nothing because Obama didn't just willy-nilly violate Iraq's sovereignty and send troops back in there, or because they kicked us out and we allowed them to kick us out. The audacity of the president letting a country tell us to get the hell out of their own backyard. What a prick. Anyway, the hypocrisy of John McCain, besides that he's a traitor for numerous reasons, a plethora of things, or a plethora, however you decide to pronounce the word, right? Potato, potato. Anyway, how about the fact that he's got pictures with these terrorists? But they're freedom fighters. Dude, they're terrorists. These are the same people, maybe the higher-ups or some of the very same people that run things against the same scumbags that you want us to hit. And I'm supposed to... how does that correlate to you, ladies and gentlemen? Because it doesn't to me. I can't accept that. I won't apologize for it. I can't accept the fact that in one breath you tell me, we need to stop these guys. And the next breath you're like, but first, let me take a selfie with them. I have a problem with that, Senator John McCain. They should call him John Forrestal McCain. Anyway, I really don't like him. I would sit and watch his trial. Like if he was actually put on trial, I would attend it physically, just to watch and just to smile. And even if they needed evidence, I would offer my services free to the prosecutor, whoever it may be, to help dig up information or give them a plethora of information. I would also introduce them to plenty of other veterans that I know, that like Bob Dumas and other people that could vouch for the fact that him, John Kerry, and all these other guys are traitors. And I digress. The point is, John McCain is a hypocritical turd, to say the least. I'm trying to be nice about it because I want, more people to be able to hear the show, and I don't try not to cuss as much, even though I barely do. I'm trying to keep my mouth in check on air because I want the younger generation to hear this stuff too. They need to understand this. There's kids in their 20s now that are like, well, we should go in there because they don't remember the lies from 10 years ago. Maybe they were 15, 14, and they don't, their minds weren't on that. Their minds are playing Xbox. They thought it was cool because they were playing Call of Duty. So now maybe now some of them are like, yeah, man, we should go in there, special forces, and yeah, blah, blah, blah. Or they might, or the younger population might just be so incensed by Iraqi civilians being killed by these people, or the scariness. See, this is what they're trying to do. It's the fear. ISIS has rocket-propelled grenades? No. That would be bad enough, Popeye. They have Stinger missiles, and they're coming to America. You better watch out, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let's get something straight. If they wanted to, they, being the terrorists, wanted to take out an aircraft with Stinger missiles, they could have done so since 9/11. How many Stinger missiles went missing? Right? You should Google that, or whatever search engine. Look up how many Stinger missiles have gone missing. I mean, these guys, the government can't even keep track of nukes. I don't know what's scarier. It's like the line from the movie Broken Arrow. I don't know what's scarier, the fact that the government loses nukes, or the fact that it happens so often they have a cute little name for it and they call it a broken arrow. Okay, I don't know. Yeah, think about that one for a second. But anyway, so if they can be flying a jet and they just oops. Oh, wow, that just fell off the wing. Oh, that's not good. You don't think a shoulder-fired rocket could go easily missing if they really wanted to make it happen? And now they're saying, oh, my God, there are ISIS members that have American and British passports, which means they could get into this country. Dun, 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 dun. Because they apparently there was a guy from Florida, I guess, that detonated a suicide bomb, I think, in Syria. It's either Syria, not Iraq. I think it was in Syria. He did it like 2 weeks ago. Some guy that had gone over and joined the jihad. Well, one less moron here. But now they're hyping it up. Now, how do you know that guy wasn't spoon-fed garbage by somebody here, in the intelligence community, put over there, groomed and everything, and then they're going to useful idiot. They let him blow himself up. Now, he's physically gone, so he can't change his mind later on down the road. And they can say, look, scary Americans joining Al-Qaeda. Film at 11. Your neighbor could be the next ISIS killer. Dun, 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 dun. We need a police state, you see. We're spying on you for a reason. We're arming the police for a reason to the teeth. Because if the police don't have their MRAPs, then ISIS will get you. That's going to be the new one. You watch. If we don't have a police state, ISIS will get you. If the NSA doesn't go through your daughter's underwear drawer, we could get killed by ISIS. You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not shout. I'm telling you why. ISIS could be your neighbor. That's what they're doing now. In the past 2 days, right? I came on air Tuesday night, and what did I say to you? I came on air Tuesday night. I said that they're going to use this, and it's going to be the next boogeyman, right? I said they're going to push this because they, Al-Qaeda's getting kind of tired and old, and you do enough research, you see that like the true hardcore Al-Qaeda fighters, our military and drone strikes did decimate a lot of them, okay? I mean, they do keep creating more to a certain extent, but the real hardcore fighters had been decimated. Now, a lot of most of the people in Afghanistan were fighting aren't hardcore Taliban. They joined the Taliban almost under name only, but the people that were fighting, they'd never even heard of 9/11. Half of them. They did a poll, was it 2-3 years ago? Go look it up on the internet again. There's videos of it. They did a poll, and they asked all these guys of fighting age in Afghanistan. They showed them pictures and video of 9/11. They had no idea what it was. They just knew there was an occupying force in their country, and they needed to fight it. Oh, well, that changes the dynamic a bit, doesn't it? No, they're not terrorists. Hell-bent on taking women's rights. Oh, the Taliban! Dun, 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 dun. Suddenly, wait a minute, they don't even know about 9/11. I thought they did 9/11. Isn't that why we're here? Cue head scratches. Cue light bulb going on. Bing! I think we've been lied to. You get the picture? So, okay, so now Al-Qaeda's not so scary anymore. So now, like I said, ooh, ISIS is in your closet. And now they're going to have shoulder-fired rockets. Look, let's be honest. if they were going to do that, and I don't know why people think we live in such a, oh my God, the America is so safe. Look, okay, every airport, okay, there is no, and I'm not saying there should be, but there is no buffer zone around an airport where, you know, you can't have a road or vehicular travel or non-restricted vehicular travel within like a half a mile or a mile of the outside perimeter of the airport. I mean, yeah, there's certain roads that might be off limit. There might be a guard shack that you have to go through to get on the property. But there's plenty of airports where there's a highway that runs literally right next to it. Okay? In today's modern civilized world, there is no realistic sane. I mean, you'd have to literally uproot people's houses and throw them out. I mean, there is no sane way that you'd be able to do that. You'd literally have to close certain businesses. You wouldn't be able to cordon off enough of an area around the airport to not have to worry about, you know, that being a possibility, okay? So let's be honest. The fact that they're trying to scare you with it now, it could have happened if the real bad guys that are out there wanted to get us, they could easily, as I've said before, and others, we've all pointed this out, why TSA is security theater. You could drive up right on the highway, hop out, do what you had to do, you know, take a plane down, get back in the van, and take off. How is TSA going to stop that? How is groping your wife's breasts going to stop that from happening? It's not. It's security theater. And that is actually dangerous because it makes the very real possibility of something like that, where they pull up on the highway and actually shoot one out of the sky, a real possibility if it's a real bad guy. But then again, then you have to look at the people doing it or being blamed for it and say, are they sponsored? I'm going to tell you right now, if quote-unquote ISIS comes into this country, and I will say this right now, okay, if it happens I hope it doesn't happen at all, but if something happens 6 months from now, a year from now, a week from now, whatever, if quote-unquote ISIS or ISIL or whatever little offshoot they want to call it from Al-Qaeda comes into this country and supposedly does a terror attack against this country because we're the devil, the West, you know, the great Satan, if they, the powers that shouldn't be, try to pull something off and you see an ISIS or an ISIL attack, and doing air quotes in this country, it's the powers that shouldn't be. Okay? They're trying to get us into another war. Okay? Or extend the current one, I should say, because it's like Rumsfeld said, well, the war on terror might never be won. It could be an endless war because, you know, there's always new terrorists being born, right? Because everybody and anybody could be labeled a terrorist at any time. So it's really an endless war. You breathed in the wrong direction. Terrorism! Suddenly, let people with left-handed individuals. Well, if you're left-handed, that means that you like Al Qaeda and you want to be the next Osama bin Laden or whoever the new guy is. So that means that you got to go. So if you're left-handed, you have to actually go get rounded up and put into a prison camp, a la Gitmo, and we're gonna make sure that you're not a terrorist. And then even if you're found free, we're just gonna keep you there anyway, indefinitely, because F you, that's why, because we're the terrorist government. We're the terrorist powers that shouldn't be in charge of all the governments, right? That's how they think. That's how they operate. It's their modus operandi. So they're going to bring ISIS over here. Well, they might. I don't want to say they will, because then that actually puts out in the universe that they will. But they could. There's the possibility that to keep you in the fear, if the media pumping the fear isn't enough to get you behind it, perhaps they will pull something off and blame it on these people, and then say, "Oh my God!" And I called this the other day. I said, "You watch." I said, if they start saying, "Oh, ISIS is going to come in here with shoulder-fired rockets," what did I say? I said, they can't come in just across the border willy-nilly with those things. It wouldn't be as easy as, maybe in certain spots down by the southern part of the border, but there is a lot of attention being paid to it. So, even with drones, they are watching it with drones, so they can see it coming over with the predators. So that if they wanted to, if they saw, they could look at something, they could, if the government really wanted to stop it, they could. Okay, so the only real fathomable way I could see them coming across is they would have passports. And I said that the other night. I said they'll either issue them passports, or they'll already have had passports, whatever. They'll some way, somehow have passports issued to them, and they'll just be able to waltz into this country. And the Stinger missiles won't have been stolen. And maybe they would have been stolen. Maybe they were stolen from a military installation, and they've been sitting in a warehouse somewhere waiting for when they need to be used for whatever they're going to use them for. And because there's certain serial numbers on the launcher and stuff, they can go, oh, these were these were launchers maybe that were stolen 2 years ago. Oh, now we know who stole them. It must have been ISIS operatives back then or Al-Qaeda operatives, and then they sold them to ISIS. Look, we have a paper trail. Dun, 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 and here's a patsy. And they'll throw somebody out there. It's the way they do it. And then the guy will be in court going, I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, the dude they arrested for Benghazi out of nowhere, right? He was openly operating in the country. He was like walking around open. I think he was shopping when they arrested him. Or he was openly like walking around in the open. Like he worked publicly. He was not afraid. And suddenly we go arrest him because he's the terrorist mastermind behind Benghazi, but he's not in hiding? Really? You expect me to believe that? But there's plenty of people that'll be like, but look, the president, Super Barry, Super Trader is here. Yay, he fixed the problems again. He weaved his Photoshop magic and poof, made something appear. Okay, we need to understand what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. If anything happens in this country, I'm going to tell you right now, okay? I know there are people that don't like us, but look, those fanatics, okay, if you actually do some research on ISIS, they might seem from the looks of it, you know, while they're fighting, they're organized to a certain extent, but they don't have any future goals or future political goals. The fighters themselves don't have any goals, and I guarantee you, they would melt. Many of them would melt away back into the background as soon as the fighting stopped. If they were able to get control of that area and everything that they wanted, you would see many of these people just melt away, and their uniforms would be hidden in closets, and then maybe later on, when things came, when they needed them again, they'd get awoken again, as it were. Okay. And I love our military lying. Well, we need better human intelligence on the ground to make sure we don't hit, innocent Iraqi civilians, or we don't hit Iraqi military. We have to make sure we're getting the right target. So wait a minute. You don't have a problem blowing up sheep herders out in the mountains of Afghanistan or Pakistan. You don't, and I mean kids too, like turning kids into little pulpy bits. Okay, just literally turning a 15-year-old child into soup. Okay, you don't have a problem with that. No, don't got a problem with that. Wedding party, terrorist wedding party, it's all the same, whatever. Potato, drop a hellfire, whatever. F it, right? Who cares? Screw it. Right? They're terrorists, they're ragheads, who cares? Screw them, they're Afghanis, they shouldn't be out there hanging out with terrorists. This is a war zone, Popeye. We shouldn't be hanging out with terrorists in a war zone. So what happens, what happens when the war zone is here in the country and they start drone striking stuff here in the country and they take your kid out, right? And because maybe they wanted to hit somebody else and your kid and your wife are collateral damage. Well, then does it matter? Right? Maybe your wife and your kid shouldn't have been in a war zone, Stupid Iraqis, stupid Afghanis, stupid Pakistanis. We should tell them to move out of their country. Damn it, don't you know we're invading and bombing the hell out of it? What right do you have to live here? Don't you see us dropping our bombs from the drones? Come on, pack your stuff and get out. You got no right to be here. How asinine does that sound? Does that sound insane to you? Well, it should, because that's pretty much the stance when they back what they're doing. Well, they shouldn't be in a war zone. No, you shouldn't be in their backyard. You're bringing the war zone to their backyard. That's the problem. Anyway, so they don't have a problem bombing any of these people in Pakistan or anywhere else, or Afghanistan, but they certainly, we need more human intelligence on the ground. So they send in, their excuse is now they send in the Green Berets, and now they can give them the human intelligence they need. Look, I understand you don't want to hit innocent Iraqi civilians. I concur with that. But let's just be honest. Let's be blatantly honest. If those Green Berets are on the ground, I'm willing to bet a bunch of them have laser designators, just so you know. Because in order to do strikes, in many cases, you need, for the laser-guided weapons anyway, you need somebody on the ground with a laser designator to paint the target. And, I see strikes of some sort coming in the future, but will they be effective? Will it just be for show? Who knows? I find it hard to believe. What's his name? Dempsey. Well, it's hard to. It's not as easy as just distinguishing a column of ISIS fighters. Like you can see on YouTube of column of vehicles. Really? Because from what I see like at least 2-mile long columns of just cars going down a stretch of highway where it's just ISIS people shooting their guns and everything else, and there's burning, Iraqi military equipment and stuff, and people running around, yay, and cheering. And I would venture a guess that those are bad guys, right? I mean, you didn't have a problem bombing the highway of death back in 91 and obliterating Saddam's military, pretty much destroying like 80% of the Iraqi military, their capabilities. Why do you think the invasion in 2003 was so easy? I mean, yeah, we lost guys in the initial invasion, and the Republican Guard did put up a decent fight in certain spots, but they didn't even fight back as hard as that they thought they would. Why? Because, they did fight back to a certain extent, but they didn't fight back as hard as they could have or they should have, or many people thought they would have. And why? Well, because we destroyed and decimated their army in 91, and then they couldn't get anything because of sanctions for 12 frigging years. Siege warfare. It's like picking a fight with a drunk guy and then whooping his ass. The guy can't even stand up straight. And you're like, woohoo, I'm the king of the world. I'm Rocky Balboa. I'm the undefeated heavyweight champion. No, you beat the crap out of somebody that was inebriated. Well, that's kind of what we did. Anyway, so I have a hard time believing that if they really wanted to do good and stop ISIS, which they are bad. You don't want to let these... It's like creating Frankenstein's monster and then letting it loose and not doing anything about it, right? We need to take responsibility for it and put it down to a certain extent. I don't agree with putting boots on the ground in Iraq and things like that, but we do need to put ISIS... for real, not this faux neocon crap. ISIS needs to be ended. We need to stop funding it. We need to go... Saudi Arabia, maybe there's a problem. Of course, there's information out there that says that Saudi Arabia is pissed off, so now they're just backdoor funding ISIS anyway. They're going to continue to fund ISIS against, and perhaps even help them carry out attacks. Maybe we should invade Saudi Arabia. If we're going to invade a country, I'm not down with invading people's backyards for willy-nilly in war, because, as I said, war should always be used as a last resort. But, if we're going to go to war with anybody, maybe it should be Saudi Arabia. Is that like a drastic statement to make? They're responsible supposedly for the 19 hijackers, right? They're responsible for a lot of stuff. We'll just say that. So, if we're going to invade, and I don't agree with invading, but if we're going to, we should point fingers over there, huh? Cut the head of the snake off. If you take their funding out, then you can spank ISIS all over the battlefield, right? If they don't have money to replace fighters and guns and bullets and rockets. Oh, that's right, we let them overtake Iraqi military positions so they can just take Abrams tanks. Maybe that'll be the new thing. They're going to sneak Abrams tanks across the border. TSA at the mall. Don't buy it, ladies and gentlemen. If anything happens, it's the powers that shouldn't be. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye, from federaljack.com. Again, I am discussing ISIS, ISIL, the chaos in Iraq. I really decided to do 2 shows on this week because it needs to be discussed in detail. I know that there's a lot to go to what's going on. See, even Snoring Dog here in the background agrees, right, Monster? There's too much going on with this whole mess that I need to talk about it. Right, that's right. See, the master has spoken. My real boss has spoken in the background. Anyway, it's too important to not discuss this. There's so much going on, and I know I focus on things here and there, but it's important to focus on Iraq at least twice this week because of all the chaos that's constantly going on. And I was gonna cover this topic tomorrow night. I figured I would do it at the beginning of the week and at the end of the week, see how the week had progressed. But because the calls for fear and paranoia are just incredibly loud from every media outlet there is. Oh my God, be afraid. First of all, even if there is a real threat, coming on air and telling everybody, is not the answer. Okay, just so we're clear. They love to throw in our faces, well, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Well, what are you doing? With the flashy, dramatic music. Da-da-da-da. You know why they use those flashy tones? I've talked about this before. You know why they have like the dramatic music and like the flashy reds and bright blues and stuff? Just like McDonald's. Same reason McDonald's and other fast food restaurants like Wendy's has it, or Burger King. Because bright colors like that, they excite your senses and they excite you subconsciously. So you're going to get in, eat your food, and get out. Restaurants that want you to sit around, they're going to charge you $100 or $200 for your experience. Even if the food's great, part of the reason you pay so much is because you're paying for the experience, which includes the ambiance. That's why restaurants that want you to sit for a while and enjoy, maybe have a glass of wine, everything's earthy tones, dark browns, maybe like dark olive greens in some places, right? Very earthy tones, maybe like sandstone, like a sandstone type of brownish yellow color, right? Get you to relax and chill, enjoy your meal. Stay. This is a nice, relaxed place. We want you to spend $200 while you're here. You're in a good mood. You might get that extra bottle of wine. You might buy your wife or your girl, dessert. You might splurge for lobster. You might get that steak. McDonald's, they want you in and out, right? They want you to get your food and go. Well, that's why they use bright colors. Same thing with the news media. The flashy graphics are there for a reason, folks. Dun, 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 dun. With the music behind it. Dun, 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 dun. We produce all of our own stuff here. Chris does his stuff. I do I do about 80% of my stuff. A lot of times Chris will help me with things, or I'll work with other people, like a combined collaborative effort to put something out, like me and Payday Monsanto did with Inches years ago. I know how to put dramatic tones behind something. I know how to attach music or score a video to the point where I can match the music to make the video extremely powerful and emotionally gripping. Okay, I know how to do that. Okay, I'm actually anybody that knows what they're doing when it comes to scoring videos can be quite good at it. I'm actually pretty good at it. So I know what they do. Okay, except I don't twist and use their games to manipulate people. I don't like doing that. Except I understand it though, because as I said, I'm a video editor and stuff. But besides that, I can see it, and if I can understand it and I can explain it to you, it makes you a little smarter. Okay, so all the fear that they're pushing out, they have to present the fear in such a way it's ridiculous. It really is. It's ridiculous the way they present it. If you understand what's going on, you can see right through it. But to the average person that is disconnected, and again, the lines are blurred, like I talked about in the Human Divide episode last week. Go listen to it. The lines are blurred. They're all boxed up. They're afraid of everybody around them. They're all alone. They're scared. They're separated from everyone. Okay, right now the only person they feel comfortable with is their almighty government, because that's who they've always been told when they were children. You go to the authority figure. If it wasn't the school or the police, you go to the government, right? That's who the mommy and the daddy are. That's what they teach the kids nowadays too. So then people go to the government or their trusted news sources, and the news tells them, be afraid, be scared. If we really had a problem, shouldn't the news come on and say, look, it's really scary out there right now. There are bad guys that want to get us. But you should not be willing to give up your individual liberties just because some bad guy threatens you. You should hold on to them even tighter because of it. Because if they really hate you for your so-called freedoms, and because you're free, and because of our Western ways, why should we give up that freedom? That means the terrorists have won. We capitulated to them. Well, we don't negotiate with terrorists. Well, apparently you do if you want us to give up our freedom. So maybe there's another reason the quote-unquote terrorists are doing what they're doing. Maybe their real motivation comes from like the genuinely pissed off ones that get used by the powers that shouldn't be manipulated because they have people in charge of those groups that are agents of whatever intelligence service, right? Or assets thereof. Sometimes double agents, whatever. It gets really muddy in the field of intel. They're puppets. That's what Al-Qaeda means, by the way. The database. It was the database that housed all the information on the Mujahideen army. Good old Z-Big's army from the 70s. Yeah, there's pictures of him with them. But pay that no mind. These are the same people we're fighting now. but pay that no mind. Well, the Taliban's responsible for 9/11. No, they're not. Not even according to the official story, they're not. I mean, I don't believe the official story, but even if you believe the official version of events, they're not. So, that doesn't fly. Lies. Lies, lies, lies. I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine a couple weeks ago. Tried to explain to him, retired Marine. We were talking, and I made a comment how Marines were guarding poppy fields in Afghanistan. And he's like, Marines don't guard stuff. That's the Army. And I'm like, no, dude, the Marines are guarding poppy fields. There's pictures of it you can see. So our young men and women are being trained and sent over to guard poppy fields. I thought we were there to fight terrorism. That's a whole other story. And by the way, the same bad guys that supposedly attacked us on 9/11 and the whole reason for the invasion in the war in Afghanistan were backing them. Again, that's who ISIS is. No, they splintered off of Al-Qaeda. Okay. Right, but we're still giving them weapons. But no. They're splinter cell. They're no. No. They're new, Popeye. They're the new boogeyman. Please. And what did I tell you about the hyping of the whole New York thing? Remember that? I said, you watch, they're going to hype the whole, oh my God, we'll see you in New York. Even though the commander that was interviewed at the time said he didn't take it as a threat because they knew that they were a reserve unit from Long Island. Now, maybe the guy was threatening. I mean, I don't know. It could be a genuine threat. But even the commander that was there with the guy and spent time with him said, I didn't think at the time it was a genuine threat. I didn't take it as a threat. And he was surprised that guy was the leader. There were much more hardcore guys than him. I'm surprised, he's the leader. Something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Go look it up. But suddenly this guy's the new bin Laden. So what is he going to be running around for the next 15, 20 years? This is the new guy? You'll see him in videos with, and it'll be voiced over, with English subtitles and narration, and he'll just be looking at the camera, angrily shaking his finger. These are our demands for, the West, blah, women, blah, blah. Death to the great Satan, blah, America, 9/11, blah, boogie, 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 blah, 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 blah. Ridiculous. So, honestly, if something happens in this country, they let it happen. Or it was funded and, obviously more than let it happen. It was made to happen. I'm telling you. I'm not just saying that. I'm not saying that for hyperbole. I'm saying, come on. They're hyping this. So, is it just to get you? Perhaps they're they do everything in stages. So right now I see it as they're at the stage where they're just hyping it. Doesn't mean they're going live. They're just using the fear because I'll tell you what, the fear of the event possibly occurring, the anticipation is actually more powerful of a tool than actually pulling an event off. Because if they pull an event off, it could go one of two ways. They could pull an event off and everybody could freak out like they did on 9/11 and take my security, go ahead, police state. Or it could happen and people could be like, you're lying, we know you did it, and now we're going to overthrow you, and that's it, this was the final straw. Don't think they haven't thought of that. Sometimes, and they are capable of doing real things. Don't ever think they're not. They're very capable of it, but sometimes they hold the fear of it over your head as a tool, actually more often than not. Scare you into submission. They psych you out. Psychological warfare 101. If I'm going to get into the ring with an opponent bigger than me, I've taken on guys, a foot taller than me. If I'm going to take on someone that outweighs me 50, 60, 100 pounds, and they're a foot taller than me, and I'm going to box them, or I'm going to whatever, or if it's a serious fist fight or whatever, and I know I have to, it's either me or this person, I'm not going to walk away getting my ass handed to me. I've psyched people out before, even before you even crack them in the mouth. That's how you win a basic fight. You psych your enemy out. Why do you think the Spartans used to yell? And you see in the movie where they go, oh, oh, oh. That was a real Spartan cry. They used to yell that out loud to scare the hell out of their enemies. That's why they do that. Martial artists will also tell you it kind of helps bring inner energy out. forget if it was like it helps you harness the chi energy or whatever it is. And yeah, that's why a lot of times they scream when they, ah, yeah. There's a reason they do that. But the older warriors, like the Spartans and other Greek warriors and Roman stuff, when you see them yelling and stuff, the yelling coming across the battlefield, that's an intimidation tactic. That's psychological warfare 101. Pufferfish. Pufferfish swims along, something bigger comes up, I'm going to eat you. Pufferfish extends itself out, puts little spikes out. The other fish says, I'm out of here. I don't want to get spiked in the face. I'm out. He looks big, bad, and scary. Rah, rah, rah. Now, could the thing still eat him? Yeah, it's going to hurt like hell because the pufferfish is extending his little spines out. But technically, the thing still is kind of bigger than him. He could, if I wanted to, maybe figure out another way to get around it. But what happens? The instinctual fear takes over, and a lot of times the animal will back down. Sometimes the pufferfish ain't that lucky, but you get my point. So they use fear. The fear again. Going back to the movie V for Vendetta. Watch the movie, and even if you just go find a clip where the guy's talking about where V is dressed up in the mask as the old guy with the beard. He's talking to the cop about the terrorist event that happened, and he says to him it wasn't a terrorist event, and he tells him what really happened. In fact, I actually have, it's on YouTube, just look up VFOR 911, V for 9/11, and look it up on YouTube, and you can watch the video. It was put up years and years and years ago, and the account that was one of those videos that I archived years ago, and during the purge of 2008, the account that had made it, the original one that I got it from, was deleted, and I've never been able to find another copy of it. I mean, I'm sure it might still be out there, but I haven't been able to find another copy of it. So over the years, I've just thrown it up on different YouTube channels. But look up for V for 9/11, and that clip is in there. And in there, this is why I bring this up. He says, he's talking to the detective, and he says to him in this conversation, he says, but the fear, that was the brilliance of the plan, was the fear. Because through the fear, that's how they controlled everyone. That's how they got people to literally go out of their minds and unplug and just, be willing to give up all their rights and bring in this totalitarian police state. Because people were afraid, and that's what you see now. People are alone and afraid, and they're pumping, ISIS is going to get you, ISIS is going to get you, ISIS is going to get you, be scared, be scared, be scared, ooh, ooh. Now, yes, they very well are a danger. The real bad guys are, they are a danger to us to a certain extent. But we're allowing them to be funded. We have not done anything to actually stop them. They do more to spy on peaceful activists here in the United States than they've done to actually stop these guys from gaining any ground if they were really scared of them. Okay, which means perhaps they're allowing them to get bigger and scarier to a certain extent so then they can go in and they have a reason to fight. But now, again, you're setting up a game of chess where you're putting American people at risk. So again, if one of those Green Berets gets killed or a Marine gets killed over there, then what happens? What happens if they're bringing Ospreys in and, like I said, they shoot one of the Ospreys down and you kill 50 Marines? Or however, I can't remember how many fit in the back of an Osprey, but say they shoot one down and whatever. Maybe it's not loaded with Marines. Maybe it's just loaded with munitions and the thing crashes, the crew dies, and now they get access to, more weapons. But then even if it was just if they were just transporting, no crew, nobody else but the crew, if they were just transporting something, you'd still have technically boots on the ground. You'd have American boots on the ground. And they would be inclined to go pull that crashed Osprey, or at least the crew, and whatever they could get out of there, and then blow up the rest of it. They might call in an airstrike on it instead of bringing in explosives, depending on the time frame and everything and what happened or whatnot. But I mean, you argue semantics. The point is, you can see where this could go really fast. Okay, and then you have the neocons flipping out. Why is Obama working with Iran? If we do airstrikes, we're essentially Iran's air force. Well, first of all, everybody needs to calm down with, oh my God, we're working with Iran. Okay, yes. I agree to a certain extent. You don't want, everybody's worried about the Iranian presence in Iraq and their influence, and there is that, but you need them right now, okay? And what better of a way, perhaps maybe, to start a open dialogue than to work together to remove that, at least there. I'm not saying I want boots on the ground. I'm not saying this is a really, I'd have to sit, I need, before I could, like, if you came to me and said, look, you're the president, say I was the president, and you came to me and said, right now, make a decision, what should we do? Well, I would need to have access to all the information. I would need to see everything that they know, plus what I already know from, my investigations, and be able to compare it, and, you know what I mean? Or what we know out in the general public, I should say, and then compare that with what, whatever intelligence they would give me. But, if we were really concerned about this, okay, I'll put myself in the place of one of these politicians, or we'll say I'm Obama, and I'm really worried about this being a terrorist threat. Well, then I would have, those mile-long caravans through the desert, I would have bombed them already. I would have just drone strike them. I mean, it's not that hard. You could have flown a C-130 Hercules over it, circled over for 30 minutes, and just unloaded and called it a day. Okay, or had two of them, maybe two drones in a C-130. Lob a couple Hellfires, maybe two C-130s and a drone. You have the drone for surveillance to double-check things, and just have the two C-130s making passes. Okay, I mean, you've done it before. You have no problem leveling historical sites in Iraq. And by the way, these ISIS a-holes are going around and destroying, like, Assyrian statues in Syria, and just like smashing them. 3,000-year-old statues, smash it to pieces. I mean, we're literally, it's like we're allowing this mob of jackals, okay, to erase things from history, literally remove things that are thousands of years old, try to ethnically cleanse certain areas, and we don't do anything. We don't do anything. ISIS, we should do something, but we need more intelligence. Come on, guys. They really, it's so transparent. You're letting them get bigger and badder, and then you have to ask why. Well, maybe that's, again, I said this the other night with the weapon, now it's plausible deniability about Benghazi, plus they get more weapons into the hands of their little rats. They have M1 Abrams tanks now, ladies and gentlemen. That's just great. So what happens if our Green Berets are sitting somewhere and one of these militants figures out how to actually use, a bunch of them figure out how to use the M1 Abrams, and say they actually park a shell downrange with that thing and they hit some of the Green Berets and they kill 15, 20 Green Berets with the tank shell. Oh boy. Then what? Then what do we do? We send in more troops. Oh, that's just great. Well, they have tanks. How do we counter M1 Abrams tanks? Well, I guess we're going to have to bring M1 Abrams tanks in there to root out the other M1 Abrams tanks that they stole. Do you see how fast this could go? Do you see how downhill this is going as I speak? Right? So it's really a quagmire. It's not a clear cut and dry of should we do something, should we not. I don't think we should put boots on the ground, but there should be, if ISIS is as bad as they, they are killing innocent people, they are killing Christians and stuff like that. So, if these guys are as bad as they look, then they should be stopped. And again, I think it's a bit hypocritical. At least it allows me to point out that, in one breath, we have no problem with going into Syria and bombing Bashar al-Assad's government. We want to go in there, and we didn't yet, but they want to. Okay, we need to go in and airstrikes in Syria, and we did attack Libya, right? And we had no problem. They said, you're killing civilians. I have pictures. I've talked about this. I have video. It's all up in the reality of war section under Libyan war crimes. There's pictures of civilian kids dead from the airstrikes that we partook in. No problem there whatsoever. Not a problem with that. Not a problem with airstrikes there. Nope. Kill these people, go in, topple them. But then when it comes to an actual country where we actually caused the problem that's going on, on multiple levels, between, besides training them, everything else, well, we can't. So that should tell you that these are their minions. Now, what would they want them for? Well, they need ISIS. Again, they need a new boogeyman. Okay, it doesn't matter how bad they may seem. It doesn't matter how, scary Al-Qaeda seems. They're not the boogeyman anymore. Al-Qaeda has become like a pop culture reference. It's lost its brisance, so to say. It doesn't have the same shock and awe power, but ISIS, dun, 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 use the name of their goddess, dun, 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 ISIS, and then they make them scary. They're driving around with the black Al-Qaeda flags, killing people, executing people. Oh, I have video up on Federal Jack, by the way. ISIS executes Iraqi soldiers. It's gruesome, but watch it. They have all these Iraqi military guys bound on their knees with their hands behind their back, and they're speaking in Arabic. And the guy that starts off the executions and starts killing them, he's wearing the same fatigues, the same uniform. So it's almost like this guy was an insider, perhaps, and maybe, or he was a turncoat, and that's maybe helped. How they helped, or perhaps he didn't want to get killed himself, and he just decided to join, and he proved his loyalty. He decided to start capping these guys, but he was wearing the same fatigues. So there's some questions there. But if you watch the video, there's 20 or 30 of them in the video, and he walks up to the first one, bam, right in the back of the head. Next one, bam, they just start capping him right in the back of the head, bam, 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 right down the line. Executing them. And then when he shoots him, he'll shoot him in the head, and you'll see the guys fall forward, and they're instantly dead. Bam, they drop to the ground. Maybe sometimes the guy's still twitching. One guy, he unloaded like 4 or 5 rounds into the guy's head after the guy hit the ground, and you just see the guy's head exploding into little bits all over the ground. These are the people that we supported, that the McCain and all them wanted to give arms to, and they were giving arms to. Benghazi again. Now we let them steal all the Iraqi military equipment, right? Scary, ladies and gentlemen. Scary ISIS fighters. See, I needed to tear this apart tonight because I keep seeing the fear porn being pumped out. There's plenty of other news stories to talk about, or other topics to talk about, but I see the fear porn coming out. So I view it as my first and foremost job to stop that crap dead in its tracks. Okay? So, again, if I'll say it right now, if ISIS attacks us somehow on our own soil, or the UK, or wherever, it's staged. Because I don't want to hear, they have fighters with passports. Well, if you know they have fighters with passports, how do you know that? How do you know? Well, we heard it. Okay, hearing something through the grapevine and actually having intelligence are two different things. So do you actually have intelligence that there's guys with passports? Yes. Okay, well, my next question would be, do you know who they are? If you know that they have passports, do you know who they are? Well, no. Well, how the hell is that possible? How do you know they have passports, but you don't know who they are? And you know that there's American citizens, but you don't know who they are? Like, if you know there's American citizens in there, for sure, obviously you must have some semblance of an idea of who they are. So why aren't they on the no-fly list? I see 6-year-old kids on the no-fly list, but these people aren't? That's my point. So they'll let them in, they'll let them come right through, and then they'll give them weapons that were either stolen, or they'll just take them off a military base and give them to them, and fudge the records to report them stolen, or they'll give them weapons that were probably stolen in a break-in before at some other earlier date, and they have sitting around waiting for a time just like this. That's how they do this stuff, ladies and gentlemen. It's exactly how they do this. So I don't buy into the fear porn that they're pumping out. And I don't want you to either. Do your research. Look who's been funding ISIS, which is Saudi Arabia. Look who's been helping train them and give them weapons. CIA, Turkey. Oh, this is just a mess. What a tangled web we have woven. Stay tuned. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. So, final segment. Last week, I had wanted to play this, and synchronicity just happened to kick in. While I was doing the show the other night, I wanted to play it, and I just ran out of time. And I say synchronicity kicked in because one of the listeners in the chat, it might have been an Anon or someone that was at least logged in on, an anonymous name. They had said, "Hey, Popeye, you should play that clip that you've played before." And I said, "Well, which one?" And they said, "Just who were we fighting in Iraq?" And this piece of audio that I've played before for the listeners. And I'll explain what it is in a second. But it was synchronistic because, like I said, I had wanted to play it last week, and I Just didn't have time, and the shows I was doing, it didn't fit in. So I knew that it was time to air the audio again because it's been a while since I aired it. I had that urge that I know that inner voice in my head, hey, you need to play it for the listeners again. And then Tuesday I was doing the show and I wanted to do it. I wanted to play it, but there was so much, I was, trying to connect the dots for you, and it just would not have, I ran out of time, but it wouldn't have fit until I would have had to explain it for like another 10 minutes afterwards, so I would have needed some more time at least. So I had mentioned it the last couple minutes of the show, and I said I'll try to play it, Friday. Like I said, I had planned on doing the show on Friday, but because of all the fear porn and everything else, I wanted to come on air tonight and talk about it. So, just who were we fighting in Iraq? Now, I've played the audio on air before, and I'm going to play it again for you in a minute, but I've talked about the video itself, the video component that goes along with it, right? Which you hear them, they should have muted the video clips and just allowed him to talk with the video in the background. But some of the audio from the clips of them, like they were burying a roadside bomb in one clip, and they were firing mortars in another clip. So you hear some of that in the background. But when you watch the video, it goes more along with than just the audio, as always, right? There's usually it's more powerful if it's a video and audio component than just the audio itself. So I've been debating over the years of whether or not to put the video out on YouTube, because I knew that it would probably get ripped down for them saying, "Oh, it's terrorist propaganda," or whatever they're going to come up with. And I didn't want them to just idly rip the video down or flag the account that I was going to put it on or anything like that. I wanted to make sure that if I put the video up, it was done in a manner that if they do, I have a leg to stand on to fight it, to saying, no, it's up for commentary purposes. I mean, there's just videos of them executing people up there, and no one's doing anything about it, and no one seems to care. I mean, they're just up there, right? So of course, it's up there for news. People, I mean, maybe the person wanted to get the views or whatnot, but technically it's up there, for informational purposes, for educational purposes. So what I did was I took the video. I spent like a day and a half, and I took the video and I put it together. It's the full video. I didn't cut anything out. But what I did was I took the video and I put it together in a format with a little bit of creative editing, so it looks like you're watching it. When you see the video on YouTube, it looks like you're watching it on an iPad. I gave commentary in the beginning of it, so that way, and I even say how I don't want YouTube to rip it down, and it's part of the reason I'm giving the commentary. And I explain that people just need to watch the video instead of me going into a long diatribe. I put it together, and it was about 2 minutes. I gave it like a 2-minute intro, and then the video plays, and that's it. And everybody that's seen it so far is just like, oh my God, wow, which is usually the reaction people have when they hear the audio, or if I show them the raw video. Now, you can download the raw video itself. You can also go to YouTube and just download the YouTube version I made if you'd like. But if you want the raw video file, it's been up in the Reality of War archive section for years. It's been sitting there, and I tell people about it. Go rip the video and watch it yourself, and make your own judgments. My veteran brothers and sisters, please rip the video and watch it yourself, or watch the presentation I made for YouTube. I'm not asking you to believe, and suddenly back the guy, that maybe your friends were killed, maybe you were wounded. I'm not asking you to, I suddenly think this guy's great, Popeye. I'm not saying that. Just, if we're going to have a full, historical, accurate understanding, it's important to see both sides. And I think you gentlemen and you ladies who fought and were over there, I think you, more than anybody, deserve to at least know the truth from the other side too, right? Whether or not you feel it's propaganda or lies, you at least... You've fought, bled, in many cases some of your friends and family members, whatnot, have died, okay, for the Iraq War. So I think at the very least, you deserve to know the information that was put out by the other side. Now, this stuff, the reason why most people don't know it is because this stuff was censored by the news. It was kept quiet. If you remember back in like 2003, right after the initial invasion and a few months leading afterwards, they would come out and say, oh my God, there's these terrorist websites and they're showing videos of troops getting shot at. And the media was like, oh, this is outrageous. There has to be a way to block it. And they did. They put filters so that you could not see these websites. Well, a friend of mine, good friend of mine, who is another archiver, he doesn't like that. He doesn't like when truth gets blocked. And he wanted to see, because he already didn't trust the government, and he already knew that some of the beheading videos, the initial beheading videos, some of the stuff, some of them were faked, and then it just got out of control, got real, because they created these monsters. But, and when I say fake, I shouldn't say completely fake. Some of them, when I say fake, they weren't genuine Al-Qaeda. Some of them were like CIA guys that were wearing masks. And that means that doesn't mean that they're American. They could be, they have guys that work for them that are Arabic. But they were, anyway, nevertheless, there was a lot of stuff that was shady. So he was looking into like the Daniel Pearl video and all this stuff, these beheading videos, all this. And he was downloading all these videos, okay? Like him and I have seen hours of just some hardcore evil stuff. When I tell you I've seen stuff that you guys wonder, like people joke because I say on Facebook I don't sleep. I don't. I get about 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. If you guys understood what I have burned and etched into my memory and what I've seen, the realities and horrors of what goes on and what's been going on, not to mention all the other wicked things that they do, but the realities of war and the horrors of what I've seen, and in Libya and Syria and Iraq, Afghanistan, anywhere that I've seen these, video results of, what really has happened compared to the narrative given out by the press and the government, it's brutal. Okay, I've seen some really horrific stuff. I have things etched in my memory I'll never be able to get out. When I close my eyes at night, there are a lot of things that I see that will never, ever go away. There are things that I can never unsee again. Horrific, brutal, gory, very bloody images I'll never get out of my head. Okay, but the reason that I talk about it and I make sure people know that it happened is because I don't want all of those atrocities to have happened and no one to know about it. Somebody needs to know. Okay, so a lot of this stuff is genuine, war, civil war between people. But so he's going through the videos. He's finding stuff that he thinks is fake, stuff that he thinks is real. And he used to have a website that was up. He was the guy that helped me create Obama's Libya, by the way. And he had a website up with all the video footage on it, and I was able to go and look at stuff. And before that site, it was a website that got hit by, that was the site that we had that used to get hit by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, on a daily basis because of the videos and stuff that he had stored there and that were up there, because he had put it up so people could get to it, bypassing filters, and so they could see it. So people could see the truth, and he would give a description of each video and stuff, and tell people about like what to look for and point stuff out. Anyway, he came across this video, and he said, "You need to see this." And I was like, well, what is it, gory beheadings? And he said, no. I mean, I think there's only 1 or 2 bombings in the video and it's at night where they're looking through night vision goggles, and you see a convoy, one of the trucks, one of the bigger trucks in a convoy get bombed. But you actually don't see them shooting American soldiers. I wouldn't have been down with glorifying that, and I would have removed that from the video and figured out who had to. I would have put something over it or something. I wouldn't have glorified that, but I didn't have to alter the video in any way at all because this one didn't have it. Now, yes, there were those out there, but a lot of the videos that were blocked were videos like this. So I call it just Who Were We Fighting in Iraq? I really don't know what they titled it, right? I mean, I'll never know. We tried to do as much research on the group as we could, and as far as we know, and this is from the research he's done, the at least some of the members of the group are dead, obviously killed in fighting. I don't know if any of them are still alive. It'd be interesting if they were. You could find out, actually interview the guy, but I doubt it. They're all probably dead. So anyway, we only know a little bit about it. And what I know about it is it came out of Iraq. It came from the Iraq Mujahideen Army, and I don't know how many different groups there were fighting. Because there were numerous different groups with numerous different names fighting during the occupation of Iraq. So this came from the Mujahideen Army, and they called them, the people that released the video, they called themselves the Media Platoon, and it's from March 17th, 2005. And you'll see in a second when I play the audio why it's kind of shocking to hear what they have to say. And again, I'm not glorifying anything, and I know there were foreign fighters in Iraq. There was. But this video gives us a little bit of an insight into it opens a window and lets you see a little bit more of the puzzle, so to say. I'm not saying that this is the end-all, be-all answer, and look, and you'll hear the guy in the video say, we're mostly, real Iraqis, not foreign fighters, and that's just an excuse. There were foreign fighters, over the years in Iraq during the firefights and stuff. But what he's talking about, the Iraq Mujahideen, or at least their group that released this video, where they were genuinely Iraqi, Iraqi civilians that had, or whoever was amongst the ranks. But this group proclaims that they were genuine Iraqis that were pissed off at the invasion to begin with. But that's not even why I play it. The reason I play it is because I want you to hear what the guy talks about. He talks about, and this is 2005, he talks about us, America diving into a police state, and that the same police state that they're bringing to the civilians of Iraq, they're going to bring here to our home. And we see battlefield equipment being brought home now over the course of the years, and stuff that was tested on the battlefield of Iraq, like the LRADs and all that. It's all being used on civilians now. And this guy was telling us back in 2005. So I'm not glorifying anything. I don't agree with, killing of U.S. troops. I don't also agree with killing of civilians and invading people's backyards willy-nilly. I mean, there's a lot of details. But what I want you to do is sit back and just take a few minutes and listen to the audio. Okay, and you can judge for yourself. I'm not going to tell you what to think. I want you to judge it for yourself. But it will make you ask the question, like I did to myself, just who were we fighting in Iraq? Here we go.
People of America, we wish to share with you our thoughts on the events we experienced, as well as what the future may bear. And despite the madness we have endured and still, we see no harm in presenting you with the criminal nature of your newly re-elected emperor. Despite our belief that the elections were flawed, we know now that when there is a close tie between the candidates, there is something wrong. Some in our ranks believe that any candidate from any side of the spectrum are two faces of the same coin. You, the people, have said your word in what is claimed to be a democracy, and thus have chosen a leader who claims to represent your vision. It is your right to lead the world, as it is the right of any nation which chooses to do so. Yet this does not allow you to conquer others. There is a belief of a large number of our people that a lot of the facts do not reach you, facts that may be classified as unsuitable for the general public, facts that are twisted to gain a positive image here or there. Nothing new to an emperor who represents deception, lies, crimes, half-victories, and total defeats. Your administration, time after time, lied and presented you with achievements directed by Hollywood and performed in Iraq. You have elected these criminals, and thus you are responsible for their actions. We hope that your future decisions will be based on reason and belief, for your emperor tomorrow will mirror the image of America to the world, and by his actions will your empire be measured. And for the first time in history, a mafia of the weapons plants represented by Bush, oil companies represented by Dick Cheney, and the Zionists represented by Paul Wolfowitz and Richard Pearl hijacked the United States of America in an ingenious plan to control the world. This type of administration is exactly what Benjamin Franklin once warned of. By weakness and ignorance, you have allowed this gang of criminals to hijack your country, create a new phobia to recruit those whom they regard as nothing but fuel and vehicles to their master plan. This administration will enforce on you, just as it tries to enforce on our people, new laws that will result in a police state similar to those of your consecutive governments back in our region. Legislation will soon be drafted by the appointed puppets to allow foreign ownership of land and structure, and soon our people will be the foreigners on the land of their forefathers. This new world order will enslave people of all religions and race, and soon your children, as well as ours, if they survive, will truly live in a planet of apes. And with a reduced population for ease of control, this can only be the implementation of a plan once presented by Henry Kissinger. This world has not yet seen an empire which constitutes in its prime objectives the destruction and genocide of whole populations and societies, only to control the energy resources of this planet. Your representatives and their media have portrayed an image that an insurgency is in effect, and that it is led by elements of foreign fighters entering from Syria and neighboring countries. Yet we assure you, this is only a continuation of what Bush once claimed, mission accomplished. This resistance movement was prepared for, and is only the second chapter of this war, and we are mostly, if not all Iraqis, proud Iraqis, who kept their oaths to defend people and country. And because this war may last longer than what the invaders anticipated, we have all promised to make their stay long, costly, and painful. Blaming other countries is nothing but creating new pretexts to invade other sovereign states and back future expeditions. They have made our country a battlefield to settle accounts with elements of Al-Qaeda, formerly dear allies and partners. They have also created new phobias to justify their continued presence, despite their loss of this war. And for the general media, we call on them to think about what they declare and not fear death and imprisonment. Do not fall into the traps prepared by those who pull the strings from Tel Aviv. As for the declared casualties, this is an epic on its own. We assure you that the figures are far higher than they declare. It is not a secret today in Iraq what we call the green card soldiers, young men from South America and other parts of the world gathered and promised the US citizenship and large sums of cash for their mercenary services in Iraq. They are always on the front lines, and their casualty figures are never declared. They are hidden in unmarked graves and dumped into rivers under the cover of moonless nights, some of which the resistance have provided evidence of. There are also a large number of security contractors who are not listed as military personnel. To us, it is one thing to be tricked into this war, but it is totally different to come here and fight someone else's war. After the failed American elections in Iraq, they will now play the sectarian card. They are already sending their mercenaries to destroy churches and mosques alike in order to prepare the ground for civil war. They will train more and more local traitors to conduct police operations and detention raids on anyone who does not accept democracy performed at the muzzle of a barrel. The local mercenaries will also act as sandbags to their masters when we choose to strike. The non-conduct of your troops has also taken its toll on our people. It has created resentment and disgust. They dismiss these war crimes as isolated cases, yet the figures are always on the rise. What's more are scandals of Abu Ghraib, Boca, and the use of chemical weapons on Fallujah, and only God knows what's to come. Life under dictatorship is far more safer than behind the bars of your democracy. Have you not asked yourselves, where are the weapons of mass destruction? And where are the links between our previous government and the once CIA-sponsored Al-Qaeda? Or is that all now a thing of the past? What happened to the thousands of people who died and continue to die of cancer? Women who give birth to deformed babies, caused by the effect of your military's depleted uranium shells. Since 1990, thousands on both sides of the conflict have suffered unknown illnesses. Many have died since then, and others lack medical attention. Large parts of Iraq will be radioactive for millions of years to come. And if we were to return this radiating material to the US and Britain, we would be no different than those who use them. May we ask you, why do you think the British government decided to set foot only in the areas of the south, where the resistance is still partially active? They have left the difficult areas for your boys to suffer. This deal was accepted by your government, only to form a purely cosmetic alliance with a nation that still strives for the glory of its imperial past. They have turned the land of the free into a camp of capitalist slavery, and then changed the home of the brave into a printing house for papers they call dollars, and guarded it with enormous military might. This administration, which claims that you have re-elected, has brought on more humiliation and insults to each and every one of you than any other government in your short yet tremendous history. And as odd as it may seem, we advise you to take matters in your own hands and rid this world of such criminals, or any form of government which resembles the neocons in their aims. Form a third party if need be. Appoint those who resist preemptive war as true representatives of the people. before it is too late. And if demonstrations and protests are not heard, use and protect what is left of your constitution and correct matters by force. This world awaits your move. Today these words may seem strange, but we believe that a nation which once gave the world John F. Kennedy, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, Hughes and Henry Ford will not fall short of giving true leaders of substance and dignity. This war has taught us that one man on the field can change the outcome of a day. One man who believes in true freedom can do what nations put together dare think of. We share these thoughts with great honesty to those of you who spent days and nights trying to prevent this war, timeless efforts to prevent this real Holocaust. To all of you we say, thank you for your time.
Every time I play that audio clip, every time, it gives me chills up my spine when he starts talking about the police state and that it'll be brought home. Do you know why it gives me chills up my spine, ladies and gentlemen? Not because I'm afraid it's going to happen. Because it's here. They were telling us in 2005. I'm not saying this guy should be, oh my God, he's a truther. No, okay, just stop at the labels and everything else. This is stuff that was blocked from you. This is information that your government didn't want you to see because they wanted you to buy the propaganda that everybody over there is a dumb raghead and they don't like us because we're Westerners and they're Muslims and we're Christians and oh my God, the holy war, we need to go nuke them and kill them and screw them. And it helped to dehumanize them because you can't see what they have to say. You only see what your government wants you to see. And it worked. Didn't it? To a large degree. There was a large portion of this country that was cheerleading the war in Iraq. I was actually initially against it. I thought it was wrong to be invading Iraq. And then because I was in the military at the time, I allowed myself to get caught up in that fervor. And for a period of time, I was a cheerleader for it. I thought it was awesome. I volunteered to go a few times and serve in different positions when I was in the Guard. Oh yeah. I was already injured and actually fighting to stay in. I actually got a JAG to fight my discharge for a year and stay in. And during that year, I volunteered no less than 3 times for special duty overseas. Oh yeah. I was all hard for the Guard, we would say. I was ready to go, yeah! Not anymore. And I regret even allowing myself to fall down that path. Even I don't want to hear anybody say, well, Popeye, it's okay, you know, we don't know. I know, we all went through it, but you know what? I hold myself to a higher standard. I didn't agree with it. When I was all with, let's get Al-Qaeda, because even though I didn't buy the official story 100%, I still believed it enough that I thought Al-Qaeda had done it. But I backed this war with Iraq after I had initially been against it. So I had gone against my own inner morals because of some of the brainwashing that I had received in basic. And because of the emotional stress, right? I've talked about PTSD of 9/11. I wasn't thinking clearly. But I was still a cheerleader, and I hold responsibility for it nonetheless. So to the people of Iraq, I am sorry for cheerleading. Even though it was only a brief period of time, I am sorry for cheerleading and being part of the bigger machine that caused your country, your loved ones, and your heritage so many problems. I promise, for all of those that have been lost from our side and from yours, that nobody's died in vain. I will keep speaking truth to power about the Iraq war until I have no more air left in my lungs. To my brothers and sisters that are no longer with us because of this war and the lies, I promise that your sacrifice and your deaths will not be in vain, not as long as I have anything to say about it. You will not be forgotten. Semper Paratus and Semper Fi, my brothers and sisters. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time. Do your research. Share the video from Federal Jack Tube number 6. Just who were we fighting in Iraq? And as I always tell you, the solutions to our problems are an inside job. We need to elevate humanity so things like this stop happening. We can break the cycle. I'm out of here.